talked about that.
I'd like to call to order the Bucksport Town Council meeting for Thursday, January 26, 2017. Roll call, please, Kathy.
Joey York is absent. Paul Rabs.
Present.
David Key.
Here.
David Key.
Here.
Peter Stewart.
Here.
Paul Godwin.
Here.
Robert Carmichael.
Here.
Who's interested in buying, so we might be able to turn it. It's not huge, but it's better than being destroyed. It brings some money back into the project. It's going well.
So they're going to cover item B also.
And item B is just we do the minutes from what occurred at the meeting, and then every week we get a work completed for 1 week and work scheduled for the next week. Report from our engineers.
Okay, any questions on any of those? No, we'll go on to item 6, new ordinances to be considered or introduced. I don't believe we have any. Item 7, discussion items, manager's clarification and direction, or council discussions, input on issues. Let's start off by Heart and Soul's presentation.
Heart and Soul is here to update. The council was asked at the last meeting, and it's not on the agenda, but it's I've asked it to be added. It was supposed to be there. This is my error.
I'm Nancy Minot, the coordinator for Heart and Soul, part-time coordinator. Happy to be here tonight. And Heart and Soul thanks all of you, Mayor Keene and Sue Lassard, our town manager, and the councilmen here present, and the public for inviting us to share. We're excited about the work that we're doing in Heart and Soul, and we'll take any opportunity to bring it to you and to anyone else that wants to hear. I'd like to share 3 aspects of our work with you tonight. First, a quick overview of January's work, which is included in your packet today, so you can refer to that. Secondly, a short video of the faces of Bucksport citizens who I think you will see are engaged in lively conversation at our Heart and Soul events this past year. And third, a few of the voices of Bucksport citizens sharing why they live or work in Bucksport, what matters to them in our community, and ideas they have to bring their hopes and dreams for Bucksport to fruition. So first, a summary of January's Heart and Soul work. The Heart and Soul headquarters was a community gathering place for the Parade of Lights and the New Year's Eve ball drop events in Bucksport this past December. The youth took the lead at the Parade of Lights, actually renaming it Light the Night with Heart and Soul, the event at the headquarters following the parade. They interviewed attendees about why they live in Bucksport and what matters most to them in their community. All of our events to date have engaged over 1,000 people in Bucksport, with some of them attending multiple events. Over 2,000 volunteer hours have been clocked, and that's probably a low figure. The new year arrived, and the Bucksport Heart and Soul work continues to flourish in the community. We are presently in phase 2 of a 4-phase process. This phase is gathering and listening to stories that are shared by the citizens of Bucksport. It's a privilege to hear the stories of their favorite Bucksport memories and their hopes and concerns for the future of our community as we determine what matters to them, matters to all of our citizens. We break up into different teams, sub-teams of volunteers. We have a story gathering listening team. We recorded 11 interviews on January 17th with folks living at the Gardner Commons. Other individual volunteers have recorded other citizens' stories at their homes and at the headquarters. The listening team then takes those recorded stories that have been transcribed word for word by transcriber volunteers, and they listen to those stories and collect data around what are some of the common themes, what are the words that people are saying, what are their values, their ideas for future Bucksport. This team also has brainstormed ideas to create focus forums during the next few months, encouraging more community engagement and targeting a variety of topics and demographics. A project to speak with all the business owners and employees in Bucksport is underway to find out what matters to them. And this project also has youth involvement. The Bucksport Heart and Soul and the Lighthouse Gallery will jointly present Afternoon Fun with Paint event on February 12th at 1 o'clock at the Lighthouse's new classroom space. Our theme is Hopes and Dreams for Bucksport, and the artwork produced will be displayed in the Heart and Soul headquarter windows. Jane LaFleur, our Orton Family Foundation funded coach, trained us on January 17th in moving the data that we get from the listening session work to spreadsheets that really kind of refine that data. Each step along the way gets a little bit more specific in terms of values, ideas, actions, what matters to the citizens in Bucksport. Really excited about the youth team and their involvement. They meet regularly, and they're still working out what their work priorities are going to be. I think they had such a great time at Light the Night event that it's hard to kind of step back and say, okay, where do we go from here? They do have planned to present Heart and Soul at a high school, full high school assembly in February, sharing what Heart and Soul work is about, what they're doing in the program, and recruiting other youth, other classmates of theirs to join in the work. We held a Heart and Soul volunteer orientation last week, and we have 3 new volunteers to add to our team. Bucksport Heart and Soul will host the Youth Leadership Hancock County program that comes out of Beech Cliff Camp on February 15th at the headquarters. Lunch will be provided, and then we're responsible for a 1-hour program to introduce these new leaders to possible leadership opportunities in communities. So, of course, ours will be teaching them how to use the tape recorders, and we will have some citizens of Bucksport there that they can interview and listen to their stories of what matters in town. John Paul has updated and analyzed our Heart and Soul budget. Things are going fine. Chris Johnson has downloaded recordings and worked to organize our Google Drive. Kathy's working on our volunteer list to simplify and enable easier access to these people. In addition, Heart and Soul has a committed group of volunteers who are mentoring the youth, gathering stories, transcribing the stories, listening to stories, collecting data, and planning for events to continue to engage Bucksport citizens in determining the future of Bucksport. You can find updates by visiting our website, where all the minutes are posted of all our core meetings and our team meetings, and a calendar of our events is also available on that website, which is provided. So that was January's work. Second, a video, I'd like to show you a video of the faces of Bucksport citizens that are engaged in lively conversation at the Heart and Soul events that we've had. Thanks to Hans Critchels for selecting a variety of the photos from each of the events this past year and putting them together in this video. It begins at the beginning, a community of people gathering to learn about the Heart and Soul process at the Bucksport High School Library earlier last year. It then moves to the opening of the headquarters and the 5 block parties that were held last year, our presence at the Bay Festival in Ghostport, and then concludes with the Festival of Lights and the New Year's ball drop at the headquarters. When I first watched this video and saw the faces of my Bucksport neighbors engaged with such spirit in our community, I smiled. And as my granddaughter, who's 10, would say, if she had seen it, she would do the little quotes, "The heart and soul of Bucksport is alive and well." So here are your neighbors reveling in the sense of the Bucksport community. I'm not sure about the lights. Rich is my tech person today.
That's scary.
It's all on his shoulders.
Can you all see that?
Can you bring it over just a little bit? Not really.
That?
Do we need to darken it a little bit, the room?
Can you get the other way?
There we go. You can see it was hard to choose photos. We could have gone on and on. Finally, I would just like to share a few of the voices of the Bucksport citizens. I recently watched a very short video that Ed McMahon, who is a senior fellow at the Urban Land Institute, had created, entitled, "By Coming Together, Communities Make Change for the Better." And he says, none of us are as smart as all of us. And the real experts are the citizens themselves. That's our heart and soul work in the months ahead, to create forums and community gatherings where the citizens are invited to share what really matters to them as Bucksport determines their future as a community. And here are just a few excerpts. This is the second part. After you get taped, then it gets transcribed so that everybody's recording it, and then we sit down and listen to these and make comments. Dylan said, I hope that's okay, Dylan, I didn't know you were going to be here tonight. When asked what makes you really like Bucksport, Dylan said, well, I like how colorful it is and happy. And I also like just living in a small town that's just small town. And Melissa, who was the interviewer, asked, may I ask you to tell me a little bit more about what you mean by colorful and happy? And Dylan replied, well, I noticed that all over Bucksport, everyone has their own style. And everybody is pretty much nice, and it's just a great place to grow up in. So thanks, Dylan. Katrina, who was interviewed by Charlotte said, what are the reasons you stay in Bucksport? And Katrina said, because I love my little piece of property, and I love being able to see the stars at nighttime. The things that I really like about Bucksport are the waterfront, and also some of the little community stores, the bookstore, book stacks, the little ice cream place. The Alamo Theater is also top on the list. I like to go there sometimes, and the little local hardware store, and just in general, a real sense of community. And then she, at the end, said, well, the one thing that I forgot to add earlier was I love the Miles trails and all the trails in behind, and that's one of the things that I've really come to like. And I often see people out walking. And I think that's a way to encourage people to continue to be healthy. So I would say keep that up. And let's see, RJ said, who is one of our youth, to be honest, I like Bucksport the way it is. And I don't want it to evolve into something more of a city place. Because a lot of people here don't really like that. But a lot of people would rather stay in the country and live the way it is. I would like to see another bowling alley, be a family gathering or just gathering for kids, and inexpensive place to go. Lauren at the Erie Center block party said, it's a lovely little community, and centralization is a big factor for me because I'm a nurse. And so I want to be surrounded with opportunity to work in case I want to move around. I really love the waterfront and all the local shops as well. I guess one thing that I would like to see in Bucksport as far as growth is some more community spots. I think that's a good idea. One thing that I would love to see is a dog park. I've been eyeing that place on Main Street that doesn't look like it could have a dog park, but thinking somehow there must be a way. And in closing, Scott said, Bucksport will always be known as a mill town, and I think we're going to be stronger as we move forward by not being known as a mill town. We're going to redefine ourselves, and we're going to be strong. We're going to come out of this stronger than we were before. I'm so sure of that. So let's see, what will I find out? So thank you. And we hope that each person here in attendance tonight and each of you will want to have your expert voice heard also. So we'll be in touch to set up appointments.
Thank you.
So are there any questions or get back to us. I know. Thank you for
Thank you, ma'am.
offering that opportunity. Thank you.
Ordinance Committee update.
Ordinance Committee met tonight. We talked about a new fee schedule, or the fee schedule being on one document, and looking at that instead of having it all over the ordinances, not being posted in certain places, some of the fees that we don't even post, making it more user-friendly for the public to be able to see what they're actually getting for what they're going to pay for certain services that they look for. So I believe we'll be handing that out tonight and talking about it, setting up a sewer committee meeting, solid waste committee meeting to discuss some of the transfer station fees that were still in question, and then probably bring it to a council vote after everybody has a chance to look at it next time. We also talked about a broad discussion about looking at some possible zoning changes down in the AIM property, with different businesses that may look to develop down there, and what are our impediments, if any. Where do we stand with what our zoning allows and doesn't allow on that property now? And a good discussion was had, and it'll be continued on. We just wanted to make sure that we had the door open for, as was mentioned, any tire kickers that are around looking at some of those spots maybe down there to move into. So we want to make sure that we are proactive in allowing those businesses to possibly locate there based on zoning. Then we adjourned.
And then you had your finance
Then we
committee.
went to the Finance Committee meeting. And Finance Committee meeting, first thing we had a proposal from Main Street Bucksport. With that, there, I believe, Susan's a resolve coming up that addresses that. Susan?
There is, but
Okay.
the number in the resolve is not the number that you came up with at
For
the
the-
meeting.
10,000.
It's 10,000,
10,
not
okay,
30,000.
yeah. With the caveat that they come back during the normal budget procedure to ask for funds for 17-18. This is to sort of get a jump start, taking money from TIF funds to get them started. The presentation was excellent. They framed it in the proper way, and I think it's a worthwhile adventure, and everybody on the committee was favorable with the decision we came up with. We then met and talked quickly about funding for the different festivals and anniversaries and all the things that are going to be happening this summer, and was asked for a request from, again, from TIF money, from the chamber for a number. And I think the number that we decided on to fund that was a $40,000 contingency fund, with the understanding that the chamber was hopefully going to get sponsorships, and that would be a sponsorship money goes up, the money comes down from the TIF fund. So, but everybody was in agreement that it's time for some good things to happen in town, and having a party and call it, that's what Leslie wanted to call it, and I think that's what it's going to be, as a party to celebrate the different events that we've got coming up here. And we've seen all the good things that went on during the winter time. We all love the winter, but I know we all love the summer a lot more, and you know, with the great weather, I think the events that she's got planned and that they have planned will set us up for a great summer. So the recommendation was going forward to set up a contingency fund to get them started. And then finally, we had a trailer that we've had for sale, or that we tried to market. We had no takers, and then somebody came forward recently and has offered to take it because it was going to cost us money to dispose it. We didn't have it. Is that correct?
At the last meeting, we talked about getting bids to remove it, which would have cost the town money, or dismantle it, deconstruct it is the current phraseology, I guess. But that was avoided by someone who had an interest in removing it. And while that doesn't satisfy the tax obligation, and that would require an abatement, you would need to abate them if you tore it down or if you got someone else to take it. So this way, you're at least not incurring more cost to dispose of this mobile home.
And that will be coming forward also as a
There's
result.
a resolve there for that.
And then here we are.
Okay, thank you. All right, item C is meeting with Ellsworth Y. Update. Susan.
At the last council meeting, it was the wish of the council for me to talk to the Y at this point about whether or not the Y had any interest in providing a proposal for providing recreation services in the town of Bucksport, because we're at the point where our current recreation director is retiring, and we had advertised for applicants for the job, but before making that commitment, it was the thought of the council that we should look at all options rather than settling on one. And so I met with the director of the Y last Friday to talk in general terms about what the Y's interest and ability would be, and what the town does that would need to be replicated, and what it might look like if the Y were to put together a proposal. It was a good meeting. Neither his board nor this council have committed to anything. His board has not discussed this, but they are aware that he and I are talking about possibilities. I provided him with budgetary and program information on Monday of this week, and he and I are meeting again tomorrow to look over what a proposal might look like. And once I have that information, the council will have the ability to look at one plan A, which is what we do now and what that involves, and plan B, which might be a different model that had a contracted relationship with the Y for some, if not all, of the services, and how that other things, the other needs that weren't part of that would be met. And then the council can decide, hopefully by the meeting in February, which path we want to go on so that we can move forward and not hold Tim up longer than necessary. As I said, once a proposal is out there, the council would need to decide if it's something and then the Y would need to decide if it was something that they could do as well. But right now we're talking, and as I said, it's been in general terms, but it was not. There wasn't an outreach on the behalf of the Y, and they have not had discussions prior to this about this. This is the first time that the Y and the town have engaged discussions. When this was discussed a year ago, there was another group that had started, and it came to the town at the end. The Y was in a much different position than it is now in terms of other programming. So this is starting with the town and the Y, and we'll see where, if anything, it goes, and you'll have the opportunity to look at two different scenarios and decide which one you want to pursue. That's my update.
Thank you. Any questions on any of those items? If not, we're going to go on to agenda items. First one being to adopt Resolve 2017-42 to commit sewer charges for October 1st, 2016 to December 31st, 2016.
Motion approved. Second.
We have motion and seconded to approve the commitment for sewer rates. Anything further from the public? I think you'll see that some of the people that got sewer bills actually saw their sewer rates go down, and they've been jumping with joy, but it was basically the modification.
They going up next time.
Well, actually what it was what the town manager had kind of adjusted the people who were have their own well but are on town sewer, that they may not have been treated exactly the same as the people who are on town water, and basically now it's all on a level field, I believe, right?
We formally, the minimal charge for someone on town sewer but not on town water was based on the usage of 2,100 cubic feet of water. And the basic bill, the minimum bill for people on town water and sewer was based on 1,800 cubic feet, which the first one was the minimal charge per quarter is $195.09, and for everybody else it was $167.22, and that $34 delta created heartburn in a very major way for people who couldn't find, and I couldn't, with a straight face, say that there was some big difference in the two that would have allowed for that. And the adjustment in that rate that cost the town $12,000 in sewer fees for all 111 or 12 people, that households that were, and that 12,000 will not, and nobody else, no, the rate's not going to go up because of that. But we've taken another step towards equity in the system. We allow people now to use outside meters if they have high watering needs. That has helped a couple people, but these are small steps. Once the facility comes online, our $13.5 million baby just up the street, and we look at those operational costs and hopefully provide a little more population at the other end of Main Street and gain back some of the 25% sewer use that we lost, we'll be able to make some other of these, what I call fare-based adjustments, in order to move things forward. But, and that, I've had a number of people since these bills come out say, thank you. It's just about being fair. And so now the minimal charge is the minimal charge. So there we go.
Thank you. Anything on that from the public? Anything further from the council? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion passes. Item B, adopt Resolve 2017-43 to award the bid for purchase of a 2017 Bobcat S450 from Jordan Equipment, with the funds coming from the Transfer Station Reserve. Susan.
Months ago, the Solid Waste Committee talked about the on its last legs skid steer that the town utilizes, the transfer station, and at that time was put off the decision on what to move forward with. At the time, it was looking for something larger than what we're doing now, because what we have at this point isn't sufficient to do some of what it's asked to do. But the council put that on hold while it went through the process of looking at zero sort recycling and then seeing how the operation went to see what kind of mechanical equipment we need there. And that's happened. We've gone to zero sort. It's working very well. We no longer need to move bales of things and all that kind of thing. So a Bobcat S450 at $30,000 will appropriately do what's needed to do. And you might ask, what's going to happen to that great big new forklift that's sitting out at the transfer station?
I was going to ask that.
That we had to have instead of a new Bobcat 2 years ago.
I can't answer questions about what happened when I wasn't here, but I can answer questions about now. The proposal is to shift the forklift from the transfer station to Public Works, where it will meet their needs forever. To take the one that's at Public Works that was purchased from the mill, along with the old Bobcat, the old skid steer that is not, and sell those. And the transfer station would not be using a forklift. It would be using, for all of its things, this Bobcat. The skid steer that's got had a budgeted 12-year life in Bucksport's capital improvement plan, and it's 16 years into its 12-year life. So it's not that it hasn't, and now getting parts and repairs is nearly impossible because the company that made it's no longer in business. So the discussion at Solid Waste this past meeting that came, and the recommendation was to move forward with the bids on the Bobcat, which is sufficiently sized to do all the stuff that we need there, and will have another 12 to 16-year life in the use of that. And the funds have been set aside in the transfer station reserve over time to replace this. They just have not been expended in the 12-year time limit that was budgeted for it to happen.
Thanks for the explanation. How would the council like to proceed?
Purchase?
Making a motion to approve?
To approve, sorry.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the resolve. Anything further from the public? From the council? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion passes. Item C, to adopt resolve 2017-44 to approve the use of TIF revenue funds to fund portions of the 2025 anniversary of Bucksport, the 130th anniversary of the library, and the 20th anniversary of the Bay Festival. How would the council like to proceed?
Make the motion to approve, with a cap at $40,000 to be set aside. Yeah.
Second.
We have motion and a second to approve the resolve. Anything further from the public? Again, this was the understanding as funding becomes available, it'll pay down that seed money. Okay. Any further from the council? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion passes. Item D, to adopt resolve 2017-45 to approve the use of up to $10,000 from TIF reserves to funds, reserve funds for a period from January 2017 to June 30th, 2017 also, right?
It is now.
Right,
The
yeah,
original
right.
request.
Set 30.
Right, for the 30. To assist Main Street Bucksport.
Motion to approve.
Second.
But
With-
that's with a 10,000.
10,000, yes.
We have a motion and a second to approve the resolve. Anything further from the public?
That's 10,000, did you say?
10,000 now.
John Paul Lalonde, representing Main Street Bucksport. And I gave a long presentation to the Finance Committee, but the one thing I walked away from that with was that this is really an investment the town's making, investment of $10,000. And I was thinking about it afterwards. It's sort of like when you go into a performance review at an employee, you say, well, I did this and this and this because you were busy all the time. I was doing all these things. And what I heard the council say is, don't tell me how busy you were. Tell me what you did compared to what we wanted you to do. So I think that's a commitment that the Main Street Bucksport would do before they come back for the next cycle of budgeting.
Anything further from the public? Yes, ma'am. Can you come up to the podium, please?
Some clarification on where all these funds go. I mean, we have Rich, who's our economic developer, and he's doing a really great job. Then we have the Heart and Soul, and we have the Chamber of Commerce. We have Main Street on Main, and we're funding a lot of things here. Is it duplication of efforts going on anywhere? I mean, no?
No, they actually do different. They actually all have different things that they do. We saw a presentation from both tonight, and how they seem similar, but they actually all have different niches, I should say.
And I asked that question
Okay.
during the Finance Committee meeting, and also kind of went back to when I had facilitated a meeting of all those different groups, and we really kind of put down on paper what they all did, and what we came out of that was that there is some, that they're related, but they don't necessarily overlap. And in this case, that's what I was getting at, the same sort of question, is what is Chamber, how do these groups work in concert? And what we came down to, I think, in the Finance Committee was that it is different, that their role is different, and it is an investment. It's an investment that we should be able to see the results of. In some cases, Heart and Soul, it's a little bit more nebulous, if you will. I mean, you're going to feel it, you're going to see it in a lot of ways, but it's not going to be a direct, well, we got a specific number that goes with what we put into Heart and Soul. We're going to feel it, I think, in a lot of different ways. But I think what I saw was this is different than some of the other ones.
What I brought up earlier during the committee meeting was that this US EPA, the Eastern Maine Development, the $200,000 grant, these coalitions found the coalitions and foundations, and now these non-profit, they all work together and contribute to getting the grant money that we get. So here's $200,000, and I read through online every one of these municipalities that got from coast to coast. And the one on Bucksport, the last sentence in the paragraph describing the project and so forth is, key partners who will work with the Eastern Maine Development Corporation on this project include Bucksport Bay Area Chamber of Commerce, Bucksport Next, Main Street Bucksport, and Bucksport Heart and Soul. So the 4 of these groups, foundations, and so forth have all contributed, and to me it's a small piece to get back $200,000 in grant.
Okay, I just wanted, just needed clarification to make sure that we're not duplicating efforts and that.
Thank you.
I will say just one more thing on that, and I have committed, and we haven't gotten around to doing it yet, but my goal is to bring back those groups like we did before and talk about where we are and our roles. Just to see that we're not crossing over too much.
Okay, thank you.
Anything further from the public? From the council? Mr. Mayor? Yes, sir.
One of the things, I don't put too much stock in what happens in southern Maine. Southern Maine is a different country from where we are for many reasons. But I do put a lot of stock in what happens in Belfast, because in Belfast, you have to go off the main road to get there. We can all remember Dire Straits in Belfast when it was the chicken plucking capital of the world. And they, I think everybody would agree, have come back rather magnificently. The mayor and I went over shortly after the mill closed and talked to some of the movers and shakers, people on the council and others that had been on the council, as to what made the difference for them. And one of the big things was, and I know there's some controversy, understandably, about money going out for various organizations of this sort. But, the people in Belfast that we talked to, at least, were overwhelmingly in support of this. Now, I've talked to business people here in town who are understandably pretty much, I haven't found any naysayers there. They may be out there, I just haven't talked to them. But I have talked to some citizens who are very concerned about the money going out for, and one of the things, the report that we got with this week's stuff about what Main Street is about, I think was helpful. And they, to a person, by they I mean the people in Belfast, thought that this was a direct contribution to not only bringing in new businesses, but also for helping businesses that are already going there. So based on their example, I think, and I know that there is controversy about this, but I think it's a good idea and we're supporting.
I sat at the Finance Committee meeting tonight in the back of the room, and a couple of things struck me was that the Finance Committee asked that some of these events that they are going to be taking on, would they take place this year if they weren't given this money right now? And I think that what I got out of it was, yes, they're kind of already planned and they'll probably take place. And then there also was a question about the structure of the Main Street group, and it sounded like they didn't really have a good structure in place of who the members were, how they were going to go about hiring somebody, and this is it's outside the budget process, kind of in the middle of the year. It's unusual, and I'm saying we got Bucksport Next, Wednesday on Main, Heart and Soul, Downtown, Economic Development, the Chamber. Now we have the Eastern Maine Development Corporation. Some of these are funded with money for a full-time business person, whatever. Others are just volunteers. So I guess I wish they would come to us during a regular process, the budget process in April, show us their structure, how they plan on hiring this person, what they are looking for in a particular person, what skills that they will bring to the table, and ask for funding at that time. It's kind of unusual to do this in the middle of the year. It's $10,000. Don't get me wrong. I think the Main Street group is a good group, and they got good intentions, but they ought to follow the same guidelines as every other organization in town going through the budget process. That's all I have to say on it. Anything else from the council?
Mr. Mayor, about how much, just around rough figure, how much do we have in TIF funds left?
There's two different areas that I consider in terms of TIF. One is the little over $600,000 that you have left in the TIF account that was fed annually from, primarily was from the tips at the mill. And that's not growing because the mill is gone. And when we did this last year's budget, we used you used to fund virtually all of your economic development from TIFs on an annual basis. And we did not do that this year. We used a smaller amount to make that pot of money last longer in terms of offsetting that rather than go to a cliff and jump. And then there was a second amount of money that was $230,000, and it was the amount of money that was earmarked for the payment of the second half of the Verso TIF to AIM for 2015. And in negotiations with AIM over settlement of those issues, they settled for only payment on one TIF, not the second TIF, which left that $230,000 intact for the town. As in, it was budgeted to be paid out of that, and it didn't happen. That $230,000, you thought you had already spent it, but you didn't, because that negotiation gave it back. Heart and Soul utilized $20,000, and I see Heart and Soul as different here, and I will tell you why. The town made a commitment to Heart and Soul more than a year ago, not through cash, but through staffing time, that mid-year became an impossibility to continue because I was trying to make one person work 80 hours a week, and that didn't work. And so funding $20,000 to Heart and Soul was to keep a commitment that went through that process before a year ago to allow that program to move forward to its conclusion at the end of this year. The money that was discussed tonight, that's the contingency for what isn't able to be raised, shall we say, towards the Leslie's party that she wants to throw here for everyone, it would use that. And the reason that I'm earmarking those is because you thought you already spent it, and so it's not part of, has never been your part of moving forward. You can put it back in the pot, but you can also, none of these things are things that I see in any way ever coming to be tax associated on the mill rate types of things. And so that's that. The discussion of the Main Street Bucksport and that 30,000, that would be there too. So we've got up to 40 to the one thing. We did 20, that's 60. That leaves 170 in that. And if you use 10 here, it leaves 160 in this. But this, I agree that that Main Street needs to go to the regular budget process for anything in moving forward. Whether the council chooses to seed with 10,000 doesn't guarantee success in April. I mean, that's a chance that the organization takes if it moves forward. But the desire is now so that this coordinator, so that primarily the film festival, because the other two may move forward, but it's unlikely that the film festival, if it doesn't.
That's what I heard too, and I hear what the mayor's saying, and to me, I felt like it was, I come down to the side of it as a compromise to make sure that what happens this year gets done and gets done well, continues it, and then we come to the budget process in April to.
I don't have a problem with that, but I would like to see them come come to the next meeting, council meeting, with a job description of the person they're looking for and some type of a...
It's in the packet.
It's in the packet.
I don't have the packet. All right. But there was a question about the structure, of who's on it, whether there's actually any downtown people
Well, they did
on it.
commit, in the meeting, they did commit to, that there would be Main Street people on the board. I think I heard you say that that's your goal.
Right, come on.
Sure.
First, I'd like to thank the mayor for going to the finance committee meeting, and hearing the presentation yourself. There was quite an extensive packet that was included, and so I assumed I didn't present some of that stuff because it was all provided. I saw some people reading along and it went, but there is a job description in that packet. There's discussion about the board structure, and other things, and then other piece of items were the budget, and then accomplishments that Main Street towns have made. And it talks about 4 or 5 different towns in Maine, what they're doing. So I think if you read through that packet, some of your questions would be, now, I agree, this is kind of in the middle here, and the reason we're asking, as opposed to waiting until April process and then waiting until June, or July to start getting funded, is because we want to jump start. And if we don't perform with that jump start, and we come back in April and we're not performing, then I'm sure the council will point that out to us. But this is to help us jumpstart and get these things that we feel are crucial to the town, and to get them going now. Thank you.
Any further from the council?
Mr. Mayor, so we've got about $830,000 roughly in TIF funds. And apparently, since these two things that are on there about the TIF funds, obviously these two things, the Main Street thing in particular, meets the definition of what we can use TIF funds for. Is that a fair statement? And and since it does fit within the confines of the definition of what these funds can be used for, I think this is an excellent use of them, quite frankly. And I don't think it impacts the mill rate, does it? I think it's just a pittance of money that they're asking for. The trouble was, one of the troubles with Millinocket and Lincoln was they ran around with their heads stuck somewhere, and are not on the path of recovery that Bucksport is. All these programs aren't going to work. They're not all going to work as well as people would like for them to. But you know what? Some of them are going to work. Some of them are going to catch fire and make the kind of difference that they made in Belfast, I think. So I think it's a good use of the money.
Any other comments? We have a motion and seconded on the floor. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion passes. Item E, to adopt Resolve 2017-46 to approve the sale of a foreclosed trailer at 82 Elm Street to Norman Jakes for the price of $1.
Motion to approve?
We have a motion and a second to approve the resolve. Anything further from the public? Yes, sir. I'd like to have you come up to...
Just a question, really. Speaking, I think, for the Upper Elm Street neighborhood there, the question we have is, what assurance do we have that this trailer will actually be removed? It's been an eyesore, even a malignancy in the neighborhood for a long time. The town took it over for back taxes or back sewer bill. And what assurance do we have that the new owner isn't the cousin of the old owner, or that, we won't run into the same situation again? What?
The resolve for this requires that all costs of removal and it be done to be completed as soon as possible, but no later than April 30th, or we have to take other action.
Oh,
So
I
that
see.
There's a date in it by which it has to be gone.
Okay, and it will be.
It will be.
Okay, thank you very
Or
much.
we're gonna get our dollar
Or,
back.
or we're going to have to take another step and do what I don't want to do, is spend money for demolition. So
Right.
if I have someone who can remove this by April 30th for the price of $1, we are
I'm all for the heck of my tax dollars.
But no,
yeah.
in the resolve, we included a date certain by which it had to occur.
Okay, and he might possibly remove it before then.
Absolutely, it says as soon as possible, but
So
no,
I can
we-
rest assured that this is my tax dollar at work. Thank you.
He's actually paying us the dollar.
Anything else from the public? Any further from the council? All those in favor? Opposed, motion passes. Item 9, resignations, appointments, and assignments, and elections. I believe we had a list of committee assignments. Is everybody happy with those?
Mayor, I have a conflict with the police advisory, and the only reason being is all of them are on Tuesday. I work Tuesdays. I don't work any other day, well, I work Monday and Tuesday during the week, but that's the only issue. I don't know if I can switch with someone that is a night meeting or.
Is it Tuesday during the day?
Yeah. I mean, I guess Joe York is, I've been taking time off for it, but.
Does anybody want to be on it? If not, I'll...
I mean, I can stay on it, and, we can see how this year goes, but, so.
Okay.
I mean, it says me and Joe. I was gonna switch with Joe for the recreational, but he's not here.
Okay, well, if you can't make it, give me a call, and I'll go in your place.
Sounds
All right?
great. Yeah,
All
that'll
right.
work.
And-
Kinda like the committee.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I, related to town council committee, I was either discuss it now or we can wait till later on the agenda, but currently we have 9 different committees, from waterfront to solid waste, all of these. And then on top of that, we have council representatives, like Paul is describing, going different directions for the RSU, recreation, cemetery, health advisory, police advisory, Bucksport Regional Health Center, legislative policy, alternate, and all that. I'd like to ask if we could reduce the number of committees, go from 9 down to 4. I spoke earlier with town manager. That's taken place in other towns. What we've been finding too, at least I think, my opinion is, we've had a couple nights where we had the same material to cover, but it had to go across 2 committees. We could have done it all at one. We're going out I just believe that we could redefine this, reshape it into 4 committees, and get a little more home time out of it, to be quite honest. So maybe you could discuss just the titles of the 4 committees you've seen work
Well, there was
successfully.
finance, certainly, because money runs through everything, is one. Infrastructure, which included anything related to buildings, maintenance, all that kind of services, which dealt with anything related to, generally it was a service provided, whether it was provided by the police or recreation, whatever. If the topic related to that, it ran through services. And the final one was planning and development, which is really what your economic development committee is now. And that all of your topics went through that, so that if it's something that affects you're moving it around on the chessboard more times than you need to. And I think that when I talked to Council Rabs, I suggested that we refer this subject, it's going to go to a committee to get a recommendation, but to think about that. It puts more people on each committee, and therefore, they're all posted anyway. Doesn't matter. But what it does is, once it's been through a committee with that many members, it's been pretty thoroughly vetted for everything to get it to the council, and it doesn't go to 3 new people for each thing on 2 different occasions. And so
We've had 3 committee meetings before a town council meeting. It's like
But and it could be one that came out with recommendations that didn't have to go anywhere else.
I thought we were going to have 4 committees with 7 counselors. 3 of us wouldn't be on any committees, but that's not the way it's going to work, huh?
No, it's not 7 members. And it's not, I'm not suggesting that's the only model. I'm just suggesting that this is very specific by topic, and that it just means that it
I think it's a great idea.
Great idea.
it could provide some efficiencies, and you could end up with more people participating from the public if you consolidated these agendas a little bit with a cross-section of things that were all like topics as opposed to...
Things will get addressed in a more timely manner also.
Yeah, so if you don't have any objection, I will provide some information on what that might look like and how you might structure it, and what committee do you want to look at that? You need to send it somewhere. It can come back to the whole council if you don't want to even take it through committee, but that's our general process. I can put it on the next agenda.
I would rather it go to a committee and then
Yeah.
come out of that with a recommendation. Probably ordinance.
That's what I'm thinking.
So it has to go to a committee? You just can't come up with recommendations to present to the council? We have to have a committee?
I can do anything you tell me to. Your regular process is things that are going to change things.
Seems like it'd be pretty efficient for you to...
I think it just gives us a chance to talk about it more than instead of, sitting here and talking over 2 hours on a meeting with people sitting here listening.
She'll just bring the recommendation to the ordinance committee.
So do you want to, when we get to the end of the agenda, you can talk about an ordinance committee meeting date?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My name is Chris Johnson. I live in North Bucksport. My initial reaction to that is a little nervous, but after listening to you make your presentation, I think it's a great idea. And I would encourage the council to also consider the transparency improvement it might help. I would like to see all of those subcommittee meetings, if not televised, audio recorded, and the agendas put on online, much as the town council does with their agendas and their their packets. So I'd really encourage, if you're going to do that, to make sure that you improve your communication with the citizen, because I think the more you centralize this, the more important that becomes. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, this is basically, we're going to take care of that, okay. We don't have any other assignments. Okay, approve any quitclaim deeds or discharges, we don't have any. Town manager's report.
Okay, Mr. French, as you requested at the last meeting, was in contact to notify the town that he's filed his income taxes and anticipates a refund in time to make the March 31st deadline. I've had a request from a timber harvester that is working on a lot in a road that has a lower weight limit. The town code allows for exceptions to this regulation. Does the council have any objection to me working with the harvester on a permit that would allow hauling outside of times when buses are running? He's doing a harvest for a resident, needs to be able to get it out of Bucksport, and the road that it's located on is a weight-limited road. The goal is to get it to Route 46, which is a state road, and therefore not able to do that. The code allows me to do this. My thought is that it would be about a week's worth of hauling, that structuring it, that it could only occur on times when school buses are not running, so that we don't have kids waiting for school buses while...
Can you also put in there, the typical posted road that it's going to be frozen?
Absolutely. They can't even get on the lot to cut unless it's frozen. But these weight restrictions on these roads are not because of they're not posted because of freezing. You have a whole lot of roads that are weight limited, and I assume that that's due to the residential nature of the neighborhoods that are on those, and so that, but as I said, the town code allows for exceptions, and if someone has a wooded lot that runs from point A to point B, is it an unreasonable request to allow that they be allowed to utilize a harvest on
I have
that?
no objection with you working with the person.
I guess that I was just outlining some of what I was thinking about, because my in thinking about why it's weight limited, that you would want to make sure that the permit addressed the issues that created the weight limiting in the first place.
Is it, what town road is it?
Hmm?
What town road is it, do you know?
It's
Russell Hill, I think.
well, it goes out Bucks Mills and it's on Bucks Mills, just beyond where it goes in, turns into from Central Street into
Okay.
Bucks Mills,
All right.
and then the lot is there. They want to go across Russell Hill to get to 46.
Okay.
It's the shortest way on
Okay.
the shortest route to get off the. Well, because the alternative is to come back down into town around all those corners and then back up through and out Central Street. Okay. The police chief has provided accident statistics on the location that was discussed in the Streets and Roads Committee last time. There's been one accident there in the last 5 years, and it was due to road conditions, and it actually happened not in the intersection itself, but just before it. I've not yet contacted the property owner who owns the land that has a little protrusion there, because I wanted some feedback from the council over whether a change in signage is necessary based on the fact that we're not seeing issues in that location.
I walked up there a couple weeks ago, and it didn't look to me like the land, the owner's land would make much difference. I think you have to get up around before you could even do it anyway. There's a building right almost on the corner.
It's just a little piece that if there was some hot top, they would make a little difference, that's all.
It might, as I walked up there and looked at it again, I'm not necessarily thinking that it would make that much difference, especially where we haven't had any accidents to speak of.
I asked the chief to take a look at this before we changed signage, but I'm happy to still talk to that property owner if the council wants me to. I just thought I'd let you know that it hasn't.
Was the reason it came to the Streets and Road because the perception was that it was an accident-prone area, and this shows that it isn't?
Well, there's not, there may have been close calls that aren't recorded, but there's not been accidents, so.
I wouldn't be opposed to just talk to the property owner, see if we could at least tar maybe another 2 feet along that corner there, that's all.
Okay. I'll do that. And the last day to register dogs without a state mandated $25 fine is Tuesday, January 31st. Right now, we are seeking information on whether or not the $200,000 grant that EPA awarded to EMDC for work in Bucksport at the Foreman Mill site will be moving forward. There's been some action at the federal level to freeze awards, and it is not yet clear if this award will be one of them. Eastern Maine Development Corporation has a meeting with the EPA on January 31st, and we hope to have this clarified. And I've also reached out to Senator King's office, who was the one through which this grant came, to find out if they have any additional information, and I have not heard back from them. In response to complaints of people abusing the sand pile that we set aside for residents by loading pickup trucks and sanders at the pile and leaving none for residents, the town crew has installed rocks and snow to make that more difficult to access, and there are also 2 cameras at the site. It is not possible to have someone sitting at the pile all the time, so these adjustments have been made as a way of dealing with those who would abuse the system without penalizing the remainder of residents who need the sand. This set-aside is not for the commercial use of those who plow and sand driveways. There is a 2-bucket limit for residents who can get it for personal use in their yards, and we're hoping that these alterations will correct the issues. RSU 25 is in the process of updating their strategic plan. I attended a meeting on this topic on January 18th, and it was a wonderful opportunity to talk with elected officials from district communities, school board members, and others about what the RSU is doing to improve educational quality and opportunities for the children of the district, as well as how the district has been working to collaborate with as many partners as possible. This is an ongoing process, and I would encourage anyone who's interested to contact the superintendent's office to get a copy of this strategic plan update. I have copied it, and I'm having it posted on the town's website so that it is more readily available to people. A committee of staff, some residents, and an elected official have started meeting to discuss a redesign of the town's website to make it more user-friendly and more useful. We put a lot of information on that site, but feedback says that it's not always easy to find. We listened and are in the process of remedying that situation. And finally, it is that time of year again, which is budget. Attached to this report is a draft schedule for the budget review for this year. I would ask the council to please look it over and let me know if it will work for the majority of you, and if so, I will put it on the next agenda for approval.
I have one request, and those dates that we don't have council meetings on the same day, could we move those meetings to starting at 6 o'clock?
That is fine with me.
I'm just asking-
Traditionally,
I'm
you always
asking
start
for-
them at 7, so if you want to alter the ones on non-council meeting nights to 6 p.m., we can do it. These will all be aired and all be online, and the same as last year, all the packets will be...
Those make for long evenings when you don't...
I know.
And if we start at 6, for those nights that we don't have council meetings.
And they're all open to the public.
Absolutely.
I just want to throw that out.
It starts, the budget is due to you by March 13th, the first Thursday after March 13th, because we tend to keep all budget meetings on Thursdays, is the 16th. And that night will be, it's not a council meeting, but it will be devoted to the PowerPoint and the first draft, an overall explanation. And then the other, it starts the 6th. Hope is to set a public hearing date at the council meeting on May 25th with a final adoption of the budget on June 8th.
Do we know what the date that the school budget referendum will be passed?
That would be the
Second Tuesday in June. For vote, are you talking about for voting?
So it would be hard for us to...
Be the 13th.
Well, the reason I said that this was when you did it last year. You did it on the 9th last year. You adopted your budget. So I think they had their budget adoption meeting at the end of May, and the validation was after. But there was little we can.
I mean, do we have to wait for them to... The citizens have to vote on the school budget, right?
Well, we certainly throw a work in the works if the citizens voted it down.
Because we can move the public hearing to the last meeting in June. If not, I'll check with the school and see what their plan is, but generally
Or could we have a special town meeting?
a special council meeting
Yeah.
on that second Thursday in June.
Yeah.
In place of the
After the
29th, or
vote.
do we keep the, in
What's
place of the
that?
second meeting in June, or we keep just the third meeting in June? Is
Or would have a special, if the school budget referendum is maybe the Tuesday, like
The second Tuesday in June.
The
I mean, what the
13th.
citizens vote on.
which would be what, the
13th.
13th? So we would have to have a special town council meeting on the 15th?
I think what Rob's asking, would that take place at the second meeting that we normally would have scheduled in
Yeah.
June?
And you'd have one on the 8th and one on the 15th instead of one on the 8th and one on the 29th.
I think that's what they were asking,
Yeah, no,
We're
I
having
need
a-
to look back on, I believe that, because this was last year's, I thought we adopted the budget on the 9th of last year, but maybe it was the end of the
But I
month.
think the school budget was passed on maybe the 7th or something, that Tuesday
Yeah.
before.
Maybe.
Now, could we do a, one on the 15th and then the other one later in the month? just before.
You mean skip the 8th, do the
Right.
15th,
The
and
29th.
you can do anything you want. You just need to set the schedule so that.
Yeah, because June 1st is the first Thursday. If we skip that one and go the 3rd and the 5th, because 5 Thursdays,
The
and
2nd, yeah, the 3rd and the 5th, yeah, 15th and the 29th.
that gets the school vote in. You want to check on that, see if...
I will, but it is the second Tuesday that they vote, and I know that last year they had their district meeting at the end of May, I believe. Yeah, that's what they did. But-
Just to be on the safe side.
Yep, absolutely. So change the 8th to the 15th, and schedule now for the 2 meetings in June to be the 15th and the 29th instead of the
Yep.
8th and the 29th. Okay.
All right.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
I would like to just comment to the citizenry that if you can attend these budget workshops, that's where, the work is really done to decide what you're going to be paying out in taxes and so on and so forth. So it's good to have as much input from the citizens as possible. Even although it's laborious to attend these meetings, that's where the action is. And then if you really want to drop dead of boredom, then you go to the school budget committees also. But I say that facetiously because that's where half or better of the town budget is decided. So if you want to have a voice in these things, keep your eye on our websites and keep up with it. And that's the time to come in. And if we say, well, we're going to spend $1 zillion on something, you say, well, why don't we cut that to half a zillion or something? Have your voice be heard.
All right, any other comments? We'll go on to, okay, are we going to hold a public hearing tonight? Is that it?
Yes.
Okay. We're going to have a public hearing for the purpose of adopting an ordinance establishing a 6-month moratorium on the development of retail marijuana establishments and marijuana social clubs in the town of Bucksport. Declare the public hearing open. Any comments from the public? If not, we'll close the public hearing and act on it, I guess.
Motion to establish an ordinance for moratorium.
Second?
We have motion and seconded to establish a 6-month moratorium on the development of retail marijuana establishments. Anything further from the public? From the council? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion passes.
What are we going to do during this moratorium? Anything?
Wait for the state to figure out what they're going to do.
Everything I'm hearing is that it could be up to a year before the state decides what they're gonna do. So, you're gonna push it.
It's
back
hard to
as long as
try and
they
make
can.
decisions until they do.
Yeah.
That's the-
You could actually have the federal government do something before the state does.
Okay, discussion items not on the agenda for the council or public. We'll open it up to the public first. Any discussion items from the public? Yes, sir.
My name is Steven St. Peter Jr. I have a great idea, since we have a lot of bicycle people coming through town that like to shop and eat here and stuff, and I was wondering, would it be okay to have some bicycle racks in town for people that would like to park their bikes and secure them so that they don't get robbed or something like that? Because that's some of the people here in town actually gave me the idea to ask you guys if we could possibly get some bike racks in town. I actually did research a while back there, and they're not that expensive. Some of them run in price from $198 to $400. So I just thought I'd throw that out there. And I also have another thing. I've been getting some complaints from people, and myself included, that there's not enough illumination going down towards H&R Block. Would there be any use for more lighting down in that area?
Which area is this, Steve?
Right by H&R Block and some of the side streets. Because recently an older lady fell on some black ice, and she didn't see it, and I'm night blind myself. So if we could illuminate some of these roads a little better, I think that we would have a little more safety, and people would be able to see the black ice. And I'm talking about like the ones that turn on automatically when you come towards the light itself. Just an idea.
Okay.
Anyway.
Thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
Any other discussion items from the public? Yes, sir.
My name is Eric Curtis. I live out on 46 in Bucksport. I've been talking to Sue and Jeff. My neighbors are Keith French and Betty French. I've been living out there for over 20 years. I've had some problems with them, and I didn't really want to come in here and talk in front of you people because I don't really like putting things out there. I figured that they could hang their own necks, but for some reason, over the years, they keep getting bailed out, and enough's enough. Betty grew up over there with Joy and Roxanne Woodman, and you know it's always been dirty. They've always been late on their taxes, and it's just a merry-go-round, round and round and round. Now it's transferred to the kids, and it's going to be transferred to the kids' kids. They've moved away to Florida. They abandoned the house. They have no mortgage on that house whatsoever. Then they decide they want to come back. So it's in foreclosure for back taxes. Someone bails them out. You know, they can make payments or whatever. They moved out a couple of years ago. They moved over to Orland. He's supposedly paying $1,000 a month in rent. Now, if you're paying $1,000 a month in rent and you've got a free place to live, why not fix your home up for your kids and pay your taxes and clean your place up? They have lived over there. The pile of trash that's been over there, there was a shed right next to the road that had got, you know, it fell down. So they was tearing it apart, and there was literally rats coming up my driveway from that place. You know, it's just enough's enough. It's just going to be a never-ending cycle for you guys, for me. They got their kids over there. They're throwing glass in my driveway because they hear their parents talk about me. My mailbox is getting shot up by a BB gun. My mail has gotten stolen out of my box. The cops were involved in it. But I told them I didn't want to press charges because I didn't want the kids to have a record. You know, I didn't want them to start out. They've come over, stolen vegetables out of my garden. Kids are going to be kids. You know, maybe they were hungry. You know, it's stuff like this. Just recently, I noticed my shed was getting being broke into. You know, the padlock was being pried. Let's see, what else? He said that he has, he come in one time and told you, you know, you got to kick my kids out on the street. Well, these people don't care where they live. Their mother just moved back into the house. She just had left Keith for 3 months, and now she's come back. This is a never-ending cycle for these people. He come in here and told you last time that he couldn't work and pay the back taxes because he hurt his arm. Well, he's over there working on his house, banging on his truck, fixing that. He didn't hurt his damn arm. He was just waiting for his income tax to pay this off. Pay a little bit of it off. Then next year it's going to build up again and again. And I'm going to be driving by. The kids are going to be flipping me off. I've lived there. I've raised my kids there. My grandkids come over now. You know, it's just enough's enough. I need some peace from these people, and it needs to be cleaned up. I have taken some pictures from my property line from over there. They have cleaned a little bit of it up, but it's starting to get messy again. They're throwing their household trash in a 60-yard dumpster with the door open, so here we go again. There's rats coming. I would spend anywhere from $100 to $200 a year in rat poisoning because they're getting in my barn. I talked to my neighbor on the other side of me. he's starting to get rats in his house because of this place. I just, to keep giving them chances, they're not learning nothing. I mean, they probably had 6 chances, over the years because of back taxes. I mean, if Keith had hurt his arm when his wife had picked up a job somewhere and paid a little bit on those back taxes, to show, that they are trying, no, they did not. Now, when my family was being raised, my wife had stayed home to raise my kids. This is what we had planned out. And I worked 60 to 80 hours a week for my family to put a roof over their head. And they just run wild. I mean, they got 4 junk cars over there. I mean, I couldn't get a picture of another, more junk in the back of the house, but it's right around them cars. It's just, I don't know what more I could say. I mean, I got another 9 years to pay on my house, and it's paid for, but I can't stay there if them people are going to be there. I mean, I can't live in peace. I mean, every time I go up my yard, I mean, they're looking over here, or they're doing something. And I know that you gave him your word that he could pay $1,600. Well, I mean, how many more times are you going to give him give that word? Then I got to wait another year. I've been waiting and waiting and waiting for the council to say, enough's enough, Mr. French. You've had your chance. We're not your parents. Time to grow up and move on. I just don't understand. And I know it's going to cost the town a lot of money to clean that place up. I've seen a lot in there. I've seen Joey Woodman bury car parts out back when the state was digging ditches. He was throwing car parts in there and just covering them over. And there's another question about the septic. I still say there's no septic over there. And I was told by people there was no septic over there. I was told by Joey Woodman's own son, Travis King. There's 55-gallon drums buried in that ground.
You say you've been working with a code enforcement officer to go and
Yes.
look at this stuff?
Yes.
Okay. Is that taking place, do we know, or?
The issue that was before you when Mr. French was told to clean up and pay his taxes last summer, that he, to the satisfaction of what had been cited, got rid of the code enforcement violations that had been cited at that time.
Okay.
That had happened, and the code officer indicated to you that those things had been. I think Mr. Curtis is saying that it's going back the other way again.
Right.
And it always does.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. If it is, then let's go back and investigate if that's where the case needs to be. Instead of, and I can appreciate you're telling us these things, but I don't want to get into a he said she said name calling here at this body.
That's why I didn't come in.
I'd rather have you work with Jeff and Susan, and maybe even the police chief.
Yeah, but the thing is, I have worked with Jeff and Susan said, that was it. I've given them chances upon chances, they're gone. Then he comes in front of you people, and you say, okay, we'll give you another chance. I mean, now I got to come in here and tell you my story. I mean, he says that I'm a jerk, I'm a bad neighbor. I've helped anybody out in that neighborhood. I've always been there. Every time there was a fire over there, I've always been there for them people. I just need to live in peace. I really do. And you talk about the heart and soul of Bucksport. Well, I went to school here. I raised my family here. I'm part of that heart and soul. But if I can't live here in peace, then why do I want to? Why do people want to come here to live? If we have people like that living next door. That's all, I guess that's all I get to say.
Well, thanks for your,
And you can keep
thanks for
those
coming in
pictures.
and
I guess what this provides for the council is context.
Yes.
If you're asked to make a decision in regard to this property moving forward, that you have another version of.
I would like for you to come in, if you can, the next time that this comes up, that you're here before the council, so that you could be here at the same time that somebody's at least figuratively paying his taxes for it, so they can hear what you've got to say.
Okay. So I'll see you next year.
Good.
well, this gives us a different perspective. I mean, the council's always said that we don't want to take people's property away from them, but you've given us a different perspective on the whole thing.
Well, see, the thing is, that the reason why they moved back into this property, this wouldn't be an issue right now. But their kids, when they lived over in Orland, they were breaking and entering. They were getting arrested. Betty and Keith hit them out, so they got in trouble with the law. They were on the state. The state does not tolerate that, so they got kicked out. And where are they going to go? Back out on 46. It's always been a safe haven for them. They had a pile of trash out there that I showed Jeff. Jeff went out. They had buried that trash. I mean, that trash would probably fill half this room. They brought a backhoe in and they buried it. Jeff had told them about it. They unburied it. Instead of putting it in the trash, in the dumpster, they burnt it. And I woke up next morning, there's ashes all over my truck. I mean, it just never ends.
All right, well, thank you very much.
And thank you.
Thank you.
Any other discussion items for the public? Yes, ma'am.
I apologize, this was supposed to be on the agenda.
I'll make it fast.
You got it.
So, my name's Brooke Minner. I'm here representing Main Street Bucksport, so thank you for your earlier vote and support. One of the events that we are excited to bring to town this year is the Bridge the Gap Road Race, which is now in its 6th year. The organizers of the race had left the area and had announced that they didn't plan to continue, which was a shame because it was a popular and healthy, fun family event. So Gary Allen, who is the founder of the Mount Desert Island Marathon, as well as some other big, well-known races in Maine, had offered to take over as the race director, and Main Street Bucksport has offered to be the community sort of nonprofit aspect of the race. And Gary and Rich and I met with the police chief and with Jeff to talk about the race, because one of the important components of our participation and one of the reasons we were interested was we wanted the race to end in downtown Bucksport. Last year there were about 500 runners and at least 500 spectators that came. It happens in early April. So you're talking about 1,000 plus people on a Sunday, and we really wanted it to be downtown and really work with the business community to make it a whole community event with some associated economic development. So we thought we wanted to see if we needed a permit for that, and also just to talk with the police department about the sort of safety regulations. It turns out we don't need a permit, but we just wanted to come and show you what we had planned, show you the course, and just keep you in the loop and take questions if you had any.
It's a touchscreen, Brooke.
Okay. Do you know how to make it big?
Make it big.
Maybe.
Right down there in the bottom, PowerPoint.
I mean, maybe you can kind of see. This one is actually a little simpler. If we can figure out how to make it big, that's great. But if not, so the race is actually two different races in the same day that start at the same time. The race begins at the fort on the other side of the bridge, and runners run across the bridge the gap. Thank you. And then there has always been a 10-mile course and a 5K, a 3.1-mile race. So the 10-mile course, this is what you're looking at here. You're starting at the fort and crossing the bridge. You're running around Verona Island counterclockwise, and then coming back out here onto Route 1 and actually crossing the road so that when you cross the Verona Bridge, when these runners are crossing the Verona Bridge, they are opposite the traffic. And the reason for that is so then they don't have to cross the busy intersection by the gas station here. Once they come onto Main Street, they make a left and finish. The finish line will be pretty much in front of the Blue Hill Memorial Hospital building right here on Main Street. So that's the 10-mile course, and great.
Are you telling me if there's something that happens in Bucksport that you don't have to get a permit or pay a fee for?
That's what I'm told. I don't know.
How did the council miss it?
We're pretty sure. I don't know, but that's what we're told. But we want to make sure that we're, being cautious about it. So the 3-mile course, all the runners start at the same time. We work with the Maine State Police and the Maine Warden Service to clear the bridge as quickly as possible. They shut down one lane of bridge traffic as they have for the past 5 years. The 3-mile runners then just turn left, go directly down Verona, but they would cross the Verona Bridge, and this is sort of important, on the other side with the traffic, because once they come into Bucksport, they're going to turn right. You see that funny little loop there? That's sort of going around the gas station, and pick up the waterfront path. Run down the path all the way to the end by the House of Pizza, come up onto Main Street, so that effectively the two races actually have the same finish line, but they're going to finish in opposite directions, which is fine because it takes a lot longer to run 10 miles than 3 for most people. So this happens April 9th. It's a Sunday. It starts at 10 o'clock. Our responsibility as far as Main Street Bucksport is to get some sponsors, do some fundraising, and also, and most importantly, I think, to really engage the local business community. I was actually just talking with George and Connor at McLeod's before I came here about making sure that they would be open. It's a Sunday, then they're typically not open for lunch. They're very happy to do that. We'd really like to work with the business community, even to do simple things. We want to have a little campaign where they have signs in the windows that say "Runners Welcome," but really make the race something that Bucksport owns. Try to work with other groups in town to bring lots of spectators downtown and kind of line the Main Street and cheer on the 500-plus runners. So the police department has been super cooperative and very helpful. We're going to have another meeting before the race just to go over any kind of last-minute logistics. Gary Allen, who's our race director, is a really experienced and competent race director, and he just has planned or just held his second very successful marathon in Millinocket, which was really embraced by the community and definitely had a kind of spillover economic impact there, and we'd like to use that model. So I don't think it's not a vote, I guess. I just wanted to kind of keep you all in the loop and see if you had questions or any thoughts before we opened up race registration, which we'd like to do soon.
You gonna run it? I might run it.
You should run in it.
I'll drive the course.
At least come out and cheer them on. I think it'll be a really positive, those races, if you haven't ever been to one, even if you're not running them, to come and see people finish is a lot of fun, and it feels really good.
Well, it's kind of, we have the long-standing Tour de Lac. How long has that been?
Yes.
Probably one of the longest.
It's the oldest road race in Maine.
Yeah, and it's kind of neat that maybe we can be a destination for road races.
Yeah. Questions? Okay, good.
Thank you.
All right, thanks.
Any other discussion items from the public?
Hello, Rich Rotella, Town of Bucksport Economic Development Director, Community and Economic Development Director. Wanted to update you really quickly. We're going to be giving away 2 more grants with the $10,000 that the Town Council generously provided for ADA enhancements. 81 Main Street Huckleberries and 83 Main Street Studio 83 will be adding safety rails so that the pedestrians can visit those shops. They're on order. They should be roughly 3 weeks, and we will help her find someone that can get those installed for her at that point. Also, there may be heavy traffic in town beginning tomorrow night. The middle school, high school cheerleading extravaganza is going on at Bucksport High School at 5 p.m. Typically, the traffic spills over onto Miles Lane as well as the Regional Health Center. And on Saturday, there is a wrestling tournament, which is expected to bring more people than the state wrestling tournament in February. So it may be busy. Be cautious, and have a great weekend. Thanks for your time tonight.
Thank you. Any other discussion items from the public, from the council? If not, we'll go on to upcoming public hearing, designation of topics for committee assignments. I believe we have an ordinance committee.
Sure.
When do you want to have that?
February 12th, whatever the next meeting is.
Okay.
In February.
6 o'clock?
Yeah, we also were going to have a
Solid waste. If we did
I don't
solid
know who-
waste
I
at
don't know who's on solid
5:30.
waste.
I think York's the.
That's Joe.
Check with him, but I mean, schedule his for 6, and we can do ours at 5:30 if you want.
Okay.
You want solid waste?
No. Yes. Joe, Bob, and myself.
Just for the ordinance at 5:30, then those guys can go at 6.
Well, I think that
Or if the ordinance
maybe
gonna
6
take
and
longer.
6:30, no,
Oh.
I think
6 and 6:30 is fine.
6 and 6:30.
You wanted us to keep those now?
You want those back?
I'll give them to Jeff.
Okay. All right, item 15.
Move adjourned.
We have motion and second for adjournment. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion passes.